everybody, welcome to our first interview, co-authors of The World of Nod, City of Enoch. My name is Mike Lagaris. I'm a co-author for this novel that we just launched on Amazon KDP. Really excited to talk about how we developed this novel. I worked with my brother to co-write this. Matthew, you want to do a little intro?
Yeah, hi, I'm Matthew Lagaris. I'm Michael Lagaris' younger brother. And as you know, I'm a co-author as well to The World of Nod, City of Enoch, which is the first part of this, we hope to be, God willing, a fabulous, amazing trilogy that we've really put a lot of hard work and effort and thought into writing this first part. And yeah, we're just excited to talk about this and just to kind of introduce ourselves.
Yeah, just a little bit about us. I'm a father of three, married, live in Houston, Texas. Originally from New York City, same my brother, big Jets fan. I've been married for 11 years, going on 12 years in April. I'm a devout Christian, grew up in the faith my whole life, and that had a part to what inspired us to actually write this novel. My parents are actually live a couple of houses down from me in Houston, Texas. I've been working on this piece for about 2.5 years, so it's been a lot. So that's a little bit about me, Matt.
Yeah, I too, from NYC, and I'm a Giants fan, like my father before me, and I too am married. I have 3 children as well. Yeah, I mean, this has been something that I remember for a long time. My brother and I, we've always had wonders of the old Genesis stories, and our father used to actually read the old Genesis stories to us. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and but it's always been intriguing. The first 6 chapters of Genesis, when my big brother and I, whenever we just started talking about these parts of the Bible, and we just wanted to do something that would be fun. Our story here is it's fiction, but what my objective as a co-author in this is to bring the curiosity to those who might be unbelievers, but also the believers, to seek the truth of the Bible, and to just really evangelize in a way, but to make a real fun story for the younger members, but also the older members that follow the way and the truth in following the Bible, to actually do a little bit more research. That's what's kind of been fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Genesis chapters 1 through 11, the context within those first 11 chapters covers really all of mankind throughout the entire Bible. It's pretty incredible. And in the Bible, the first 6 chapters, like my brother was just discussing, the old world, there's not much discussed in that. And so, we're going to talk a little bit about where this came from, how we even came up with this idea to do a novel about this timepiece. But in this novel, I really was responsible for more of the character development and a lot of the biblical themes that you as a reader will read once you get into the piece. And so my brother, however, was very creative with designing the animals that you'll read, the main characters of the story. Just spectacular work by my brother. And a lot of the strategy, because to be honest with you, to put this piece together, it was very complicated. You'll see that there was a lot of moving parts, and Matthew was really the architect behind how all of that was put together. So we love movies, we love stories. My father used to read us stories when we were younger, and so we've always had a passion for creativity. So this started, 2.5 years ago. We were in,
We're really at.
we're almost 3 years. You were at my house. We were in the pool,
Right.
and we were talking about Noah, and we were talking about what it was like to have the world destroyed, essentially, and how we don't even think about it. We just think about how Noah got on a ship and he got a bunch of animals, and he went 40 days, 40 nights rain and landed on Mount Ararat. But we never actually thought about how many people died when the world ended, and why did the world end. And so my brother and I are talking and discussing that and said, is there any novels that portray exactly like what happened, or is there any other type of literature out there outside of the apocryphal books that we know, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, so on and so forth. And there are some, but none that really get in depth with the specifics that the Bible calls out, like the City of Enoch. I have not read a piece about the City of Enoch.
Not in great detail, and that's what's kind of made it fun. And like my big brother brought up earlier, is that
I'm a big epic fantasy guy, Lord of the Rings, kind of a movie guy, and or one of the greatest franchises ever, Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, and what we were hoping to do is to kind of really bring that kind of element as far as writing this book, and again, to really emphasize that it's a fiction, but it's based on the biblical principles that we can take from the Bible, and so going back to like in that pool, when I read Genesis 6 and where God regretted making mankind, like, and that was one of the discussions where it was like, what could have happened, or when the world was so bad and then it says that man was just only wicked, what would that look like, in the specifics, in writing a story, because you can't find it anywhere. It's just it just explains what God and how God felt, and that Noah was the only one, and that he saved him, and along with a few others, and that's it.
Yeah.
The whole world was destroyed.
I think the biggest takeaway here is that my brother and I are writing this trilogy that cover the entire patriarchal line from Adam to Noah. So all of the patriarchs will be characters in our trilogy. So, and we'll be covering, again, in our story here, we really focus in on Adam is in the story, but he's more of a side character. We focus on Enosh and Jared. Those are the two. So Enosh was the son of Seth, if you look in Genesis, and during his time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. Jared is the father of Enoch, and during Jared's time, according to some of the apocryphal books, is when the giants began, the time of the giants. So we thought those two characters would be great to really build our story around.
So, Mike, let me just ask you something.
Yeah.
What inspired the way that you wrote the characters? In how we've been discussing about with Jared, and then also his wife, who is a fictitious character, but Dina. And then we have Tubal Cain, who is a real character, and Enosh. So what inspired you? How to write those things?
So, like we had discussed, we had identified Enosh as a main character because people began to call on the name of the Lord during the time of Enosh. So we thought that would be a good character to really build our work around. And he was essentially going to be the main character of our story when we first started writing this. And then we brought Jared. We identified Jared also as the right person because, again, we wanted to bring in the giants and how the giants, the mighty men, if you will be a major part of our trilogy. So when we began to write the story, Jared ended up, his story arc ended up becoming more intriguing, and he ended up becoming the main character in the book. I didn't actually start the book with that in mind. We thought Enoch was going to be the main character. Jared's wife, originally, her name was Lilith. I know you guys are probably laughing at that because Lilith is actually the name of, quote unquote, you call him a succubus, I believe it is, a demonic type woman in the old literatures. And once I figured that out, I said, oh no, I can't name her that. And so we were looking at names from those times, and I really liked the name Dina. So we picked that name. And then their story is really part of an underlying foundation into this book. It's not a romance novel, but it does have strong tenets of romance in it. And a lot of that has to do with Jared and Dina's marriage and their love and their faith and their, we tried to show what a biblical marriage should look like through those characters. And then when they run into trials like Tubal-Cain. And Tubal-Cain essentially is the main adversary in this story. And what we tried to do there is show how evil can turn you into a monster. And this story very much shows the beginnings of where Tubal-Cain started, the insecurities, the areas in our life that can impact us and make us vulnerable, and if not checked, can turn us into something that is irreversible. And so we look to show that with these characters. Side note, speaking of characters, we had a couple of made-up characters as well outside of Dina. One of them was Bala. She ended up being my favorite character. I did not write the book with her in mind to be what she became. You'll have to read the book to see, but she is my favorite character when writing this. And from most of the feedback we received, Peleg seems to be the funniest and the most likable character in our story. So we're excited for you to read it and learn about these different people that we talked about in our book. And it was exciting. It was really exciting to work on.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much hit all my other questions I was gonna ask. But the one thing I did want to ask you though, there is one. The biblical themes, that helped shape the approach. Right. In the character development. Like what, how did those biblical themes shape, your approach on the character?
Something that as a Christian is very important is that I believe that Jesus Christ, I believe that God lives in me, and that He living in me, my body is a temple to that embodiment, and that all the things that I have done have been forgiven through the blood of Jesus Christ. And forgiveness is a major attribute or a major tenet that God teaches us, that love holds no record of wrong. But it is very human to hold record. And the thing is, if we were to hold record, then my sins would not be forgiven, and I would not be headed to live with my Father for the rest of for eternity. I would be cursed. I would be hurt or still under the heel of sin. So I do believe forgiveness is paramount. And one of those tenets that we brought up, one of those themes that we brought up in the Bible was in this book was about vengeance and being hurt and holding on to that hurt where it can destroy you. And don't want to ruin the story, but we do have a moment in this book where one of the main characters goes through this and learns at the end that vengeance is not the way, and that forgiveness and letting go of your pain is the only way to true peace. And that true peace, we believe, we know, is through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Going like God. And it's simple. And I think that was actually an amazing thing that was done within the character development from when I saw how you did that to let go and to let God and to have faith in knowing that everything will be all right if we just place it in the Creator's hands.
Part of what we did with these characters was we created animal characters. Now, the animals never said anything, but my brother is a big-time nature guy. I mean, when he was younger, someone threw a golf ball or hit a golf ball on a duck's head, and the duck got all messed up, and my brother was little. He ran over, no, and he just wanted to take care of the duck.
It died.
And it ended up dying, yeah. But Matthew loves animals, and he generated the animals that you see throughout this entire story, good and bad. He is the creator of. And so I have a question, for you, the animals and the battle sequences, what inspired you to create, or why did, when we were coming up with the story, we weren't thinking of lions, we weren't thinking of any of that. What made you end up thinking of the lions, which are front and center within our story?
Well, I mean,
Look at that.
For one, I love animals. I've always been, like my brother saying, very key with nature, and and I appreciate them and their connection with us. Even when I would read Genesis and the way with Adam and how God had it set for man to have dominion over all these animals, and then we can look so many times over where only human, and how we're able to connect with all different kinds of animals, even today. Some of them extremely dangerous, but that we're able to sometimes tame or to train certain animals that would seem untamable or untrainable, that we have this ability to do that. And I think that that's something that comes from the divine. That's something that is connected with us. And that's just my opinion, but also it is seen throughout the world. So, what really, to me, inspired me for specifically the lions, right, in this story, I had to do a little bit of digging on the prehistoric animals that are not even in the world today. So there is, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, it's the Machiarodus or Machiadorus, I think it's a Machiarodus, is the oldest prehistoric cat and there's many different genus, family, species that go along with this particular animal, but it's a saber-toothed cat, and they grow ridiculously big. And I always thought it would just be really cool to, especially as a little kid, to have, if you could ever ride one like a horse, and like if you were to ever ride I thought when I was really young, I wish that we had a golden retriever when we were growing up, and I always wanted to ride my dog like a horse, but being so big, and it was just like impossible. But it was just like it's honestly a kid dream of mine to inspire that. So in this book, I brought in the fact, I said, hey, why don't we use these prehistoric cats that when you go through and you look in time, they no longer exist. And we have what today, the other 6 big cats, but this lineage of these big cats are no longer there. And which, if we tie it to fictitiously the flood, and during that time, but that they were all wiped out. And they would no longer exist, but I felt like bringing them back into these stories where there was still much of the connection with the Creator and God's people we have in the gathering. And as you read the book, you'll see what I mean. But what inspired me is that the symbolism of the lion and what the lion has meant to mankind. And
isn't it true you actually started off with these as tigers?
I did. I was starting off with them as tigers, as saber-toothed tigers, which would be the Smilodon, as the prehistoric cat, or there's the American cave lion. There's a lot of many different other big cats that are out there. But the more I thought about it and I spoke with my big brother, I was like, you know what? I think for our story it would be better if they were lions, because in reference to our Lord and Savior is that he is the lion and he is the lamb. And the tribe of Judah that is formed later on, but the symbolism is that of the lion and where that actually might have come from. But in our story, this is a Christian fantasy. So that's what really inspired me as far as making these creatures, but also solidifying the sacred bond that they would have with God's people and their connection and their assistance in the protection of God's people.
So where did you get the name Atrox?
So Atrox, all these names that you'll see so there's 6 lions and we use 6 because to represent the 6 big cats of today. And all of them, and this is what's been kind of fun, is because we have had an opportunity to blend what they could possibly looking like, having that specific kind of genome, if you will, of all of the other cats that are of today. So
explain all of them.
So when you look at, basically the names they came from a scientific name that was given by people who had named these creatures. Back then you'll see the Macurotus Kabir, the Atrox Panthereo. There is an Aesion, but essentially I took all of the names of the beginning portion of the names that were given scientifically to their family, genus, and species, and I just took the first parts. So there's Xeno, there's Aesion, there's Onca, there's Atrox, and then there's Kabir, and Amor. So, which Amor is the one that's on our front cover. So we made all of these 6 big cats look like all of the big cats that we see today, but we just mixed them up. So Atrox, who is a dark brown, pretty much almost black, looking like a Black Panther, but still has very much of a lion type of body. He's the biggest of them all. Kabir, who is a maroon/crimson red lion. He has features that you won't ever find anywhere else. Very mythical. He is and the reason why we chose the red is in reference to the red heifer, his red coat. Anyway, then you have Zeno. He is of a cheetah-like. His body is more sleek. He is fast. But we still put like a mane on him, and just having fun with as far as making what kind of animal that he would look like. And then you have Onca. Onca has very much also of this orange, this beautiful like fruit, but also embodying still of like of a jaguar, of a lion mix kind of animal. And then Aesion, which is, I think she's the most, to me, like I really wanted to make her the most beautiful of all of the lions, and how sleek that she would be, that she's more of like the puma, the mountain lion, but also still has the power and very majestic look of a lion, but still having that sleek, athletic, and agile build. and then obviously Amor, he is the one who looks like what we know of a lion today.
Right.
Just looks very
Just
much
bigger
like
with saber
just
teeth.
bigger with saber teeth.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. It's been really, really fun making these animals.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Let me ask you, as far as for this book that we've gone over, the City of Enoch, World of Nod, what kind of research and reading, I guess, that influenced your version of Enoch and the
The world before the flood. Like we had mentioned before, the world before the flood is very vague. The Bible really doesn't speak a lot about it. We know that it was evil, that every thought of man was to do evil, and that there were giants in those days. And we'll talk about that a little more as we move forward. But I think the biggest thing that I wanted to do was first do a history lesson into all of not just the Bible, but the apocryphal books, like I had mentioned before, and learn about what was spoken about during those times. I know there's certain books within the Bible, Jude, and obviously Genesis and Exodus, that speak of some of the things that occurred during and before the flood. But I wanted to check and read about the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Giants, and many of these different books that were written in those a long time ago that talked about this. So I studied that. I also studied ancient Sumerian histories about the Anunnaki, the gods that they had worshipped, and a lot of the different cultures, a lot of what that culture believed in. So there was a blend that we wanted to really captivate. But I want the biggest thing was that this world that we were going to talk about, I did not want it to be like any other that I've written, that I have read before. I wanted it to be unique, and I wanted it to be very aligned with the Bible, which is why my brother and I wrote about the City of Enoch. As we know, Cain killed his brother Abel. Cain killed his brother Abel because he was angry and jealous that God accepted Abel's sacrifice and not Cain's. And Abel gave the best of what he was, of who he was. And Cain did not. He gave the least, or what was left, to God. And God looks at the heart. The entire view, the entire ethos around what God is all about the heart. It's all about you, which is why he lives in us to help us to choose to do right from wrong. So Cain, out of jealousy, because he was not doing what was right, killed his brother Abel. And he was afraid that he was going to be killed for doing so, spilling blood on the ground. Very similar to what we see today with human beings. Again, Cain was the first son of man. And God put a mark on Cain, a mark to warn anyone that if they were to take vengeance, that they would be punished 7 times fold, to keep anyone away from hurting Cain, because God does not want death, does not want vengeance. And so Cain ended up becoming a wanderer and went to the land of Nod. Again, I don't know a whole lot about the land of Nod. There's not a lot of articles about what that land was. We know it was east of Eden, and we know that Cain built a city named after his son Enoch. So my brother and I said, let's just take that and make it its own world. And that was really the foundation into what helped us create the world within this book. There is going to be more, and we'll talk about that, but that's a little bit.
I mean, and speaking of, and since you went into all of that, and how, and what inspired you to actually write this way, how would you want the readers to feel when they think about this ancient world that we're trying to?
Well, I think you and I both agreed that my brother and I, we wanted this land of Nod to be looked at as separation from God. Separation from God because we see the world today in that very same vein. Separated from God, separated from truth, and relying on themselves. The knowledge of man is what everyone's faith essentially is in. If science cannot tell you something, then it isn't real. I love the New York Jets, and I don't need science to tell me that, right? I believe that truth is here. And so we wanted to show a comparison between separated from God and then the gathering, which you'll read in the book, of folks who again began to call on the name of the Lord through Enoch, and their lifestyle. And when the two meet, what actually happens when that happens? Light versus darkness, XYZ. Right. So that was really, how we developed that world.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting enough, when you'll see it in the book, and it's mentioned a little bit, and this isn't any spoilers or anything like that, but you'll know that there are people that are outside of these areas that are living that do not call on the name of the Lord. Besides the City of Enoch, that there are other parties that are just out there. We give small mention to it. So, but speaking of specifically the City of Enoch, right? How does that city, or how does the City of Enoch set the stage, our book, for future sequels?
Oh, wow.
How does?
Well, interesting. It definitely does, and I think what we can do is, why don't we just go for a stroll and talk about it? We could talk about how it was to write this as brothers.
Yeah.
And then we could talk about how the City of Enoch sets the stage for our future stories that we're going to do.
Absolutely.
So.
No spoilers, though.
Really nice out.
Yeah. I always loved being outside. I remember when we were kids, man. That's how we grew up. Just being outside a lot.
Yeah. And we grew up in New York, upstate New York, a town called Mayapack. Not the most funnest place, but definitely far from here. We are now living out here in Texas. Actually, not far from here are dinosaur prints, right?
Yeah, it's underneath where the St. Gabriel River is. There's like a little spot where they had some dinosaur tracks. There's a big attraction over here.
Yeah. Whenever I would see those dinosaur tracks, it would always wow. Wonder what that was like with those animals walking the earth. And that was something we wanted to add in our book, was the world before the flood. What was that world like? Not just from a human perspective, but from a nature perspective. And we believe that the dinosaurs roamed the earth before the flood. So in our book, we have the dinosaurs, and the term dinosaur wasn't used until sometime in the last couple of 100 years. Before that, they were called dragons, or referred to as monsters, if you will. So we put the dinosaurs in our book, and they're going to be a large part of the coming books in the future state.
Right, and obviously, you know, we're the reference and the term definition dragon, you know, I mean, you know, we know, like, you know, obviously as a mythical creature, you know, that there's nothing that really, besides when you read, what is it, Job?
Job,
When
that's right.
it speaks about the beast that has teeth that don't separate from one another, and then it has the ability to even breathe fire. I mean, it's very specific, where what we call definitionally, because it's something that's extinct, the dinosaur, you know, but really there's reference to the name of dragon, as we know today, and we use it in such like a, you know, a way of something that's not real, like a winged creature that breathes fire, you know what I mean? But what we're hoping in this book, introducing dragons, is that they are the large reptilian creatures that we know as dinosaurs, like a Tyrannosaurus or you know, Brachiosaur, or any of the other old large reptilian animals that we know from back then, and that are now extinct.
So what was it like for you, Matt, to write this with your brother?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much as a little brother, you know. It's been fun, man. It's like a dream come true, man. Like, this is something we've always had, like, creative thoughts, and I never would have thought that really that this kind of actually came to fruition. You know what I mean? It's been awesome. It's been good. Definitely a little bit of a struggle, because as adults now, you know, and it's not like we're little kids anymore. You know, having different thought processes and ideals, and you know, we're two different people. We're still brothers. We've always been brothers, but you know, we've headbutted on some things. You know,
Yeah.
No, I want to do this, and you were like, I want to do that, and
Yeah. I do say that the most important thing that I've gotten out of this entire time, last 2.5 years of writing this book, is that I was able to do it with my brother, with you, and I'll always remember that, and I cherish that very much, because it brought us even closer together as friends, you know, because I'll call him and I'll be like, oh, I got this idea. He'll call me and be like, oh, and we're just super excited, and it doesn't even matter how bad the day is or how, you know, terrible what's going on. The moment we start talking about our book and talking about what we want, it's like we're kids again. It's really, really, really cool.
That's pretty much been, that's pretty much been my my whole feeling towards all of it, is that no matter what's going on, you know, as far as, and I'm sure anybody who is watching this that has children, or, you know, you have a family, you have real life stuff going on, but, you know, to actually, in the creation part of writing this book, it's like almost like it's an escape, you know, if you will, in moving forward. And whenever, with my big brother, when we would actually align on something, it felt like this was the right thing, because we're different people. And just coming up with content creation was difficult. But when we would align on something, it was like, all right, you know, this is the avenue that we're gonna go.
Yeah.
And that's been, I think, the most fun, is just having those breakthroughs, and then when they connect and align to the next part, and then the next, and then the next.
So one of the main topics that my brother and I really have not yet discussed with you, the readers, is the introduction of the spirit world. And we do have a character in our book named Azazel. He's referenced in some of the apocryphal books. You may have heard of him in Jewish lore, the Azazel goat. Azazel is a watcher, an angel, and in our book he's the link between the watchers and what will come, which is the Nephilim, the giants, and the introduction. And this book really introduces and sets the stage for the world of giants, which is coming in our second book. I don't want to spoil the name of our book, but the next book and the next two books are about the world of giants and the Watchers and how that fits into the context of humanity. So we try to stay more focused on the human element and not really get too much into the spirit world, but it is a major part of our book, and we'll be talking more about that.
Yeah, and what's really nice about, obviously it's coming from a bias point being co-author on this book, but it is, City of Enoch is the alley-oop to the slam dunk that is coming. The second book specifically is going to be the one that is going to really, it's going to be the most complex in nature, but at the same time, if done right, if we can really, God willing, if everything is the way it's supposed to be, this book will really give such a great inspiration, I think, to so many, and really to seek the truth. The City of Enoch, part 1, when you read it, and like my brother had said before, is that we kept more of the human element. It really exposes really how easily we can be duped by what others say, especially people in the position of power. And a lot of us as adults, we can understand this today, even as children. Some children, they listen to what other people say, and if they're not listening to their parents, they can easily be duped and follow the wrong direction, and which we know from right in the beginning. It takes place in Genesis chapter 1. You surely will not die, because God knows that in the day that you eat of it, that you will be like him, right? The knowledge of good and evil. Instantly, we know how the devil can dupe, how he can easily swindle. He is the manipulator. He is the destroyer. And within the City of Enoch, you'll see how people will be swindled. And this is something that we can expect. So moving into the next books, what we're hoping to highlight is a lot of the mythological, polytheistic beliefs and how people believed those things based on something that is not true.
Yeah. And so we, the next book is going to be, like my brother was mentioning, why Matt and I decided to write this book in the first place was the book that's coming. This was the setup for our next story. Our next story is going to be global. It will be the whole world, Pangea, and how many people who lived all over that land and all the creatures and the politics. And we know that the world and where it is today and where it's going. And our goal is to take what we see today and show you that through the eyes of fiction, but our story to reflect, again, the direction that is important for all of us to take. Right? So we're excited. We are excited. Only thing I'll say, when it comes to the giants, is there anything that you want to talk about with Arachiel?
Not much, because that name alone, when you get to the point of when you read about him, that there are certain, I will say this, a lot of our book, what we would hope is that you would catch the symbolisms, that you'd understand the reason why we chose certain things. Where, so for example, with the lions that we mentioned, that there is a symbolism and a reason behind to, besides them just being fun characters, especially for anybody who's into like the action and the, you know, kind of fantasy, cool, what I like to call narf, you know, generation, like to, you know, ride on these amazing creatures into battle and like, you know, to slay foes to victory, kind of, you know, XYZ, you know, but the symbolism as far as in depth as a Christian or as a believer in the Lord Almighty is that you would find connections and understanding when you see about Orakiel and for his existence and the not connection to the Creator.
Yep. So stay tuned, and I think we're going to finish our walk and head back in, close this out. I think we're going to be wrapping up our interview of one another. And again, really excited for all of you guys who are watching. Please read the book. It's our first book. We've never written anything before like this. And again, we were inspired to write this story, and we're inspired to continue writing our stories because it means a lot to us. It really speaks to a lot of who we are. Matthew, what do you hope readers take away from this story?
You mentioned something earlier that really, it's always been a huge part of me, especially as an adult, as a father. And for all of my young fathers out there, all of the men that will read this book, I would really hope that it would speak to you as far as for what God has called you to be. And it's no shade on the females at all, you know, but specifically as far as for the spiritual leaders in the home, what God calls us to be, is my hope is that for us as men, that we would align with God, because when we do align with the Creator, He just makes a way for everything. And that even if we have certain worries or fears or anything like that, but through this book is that I would hope that you would align with the Creator, that you would align with the Lord, and just know that through faith that He'll always see things through. He'll always make a way for things to work out for you, no matter how much money it is or it's health or whatever it might be. Marital issues, you name it. God provides. He always has. And that is my hope. For curiosity, for a person to really read this, find it intriguing, have the story really grab you, and then cross-reference. You know, find an area in the Bible where you see these characters that we've spoken about in this book, which is a fantasy fiction but based on the biblical principles, but that you can go back and then look and then dive deeper and really align yourself with the truth of it all, because our book is just based off of a portion of the truth, and then, you know, we tell our own story based on that. But that's my hope.
Yeah. My hope really, and why this story really matters now, is I think the world is more chaotic than it has ever been. I understand that we're more connected than we have ever been through the internet and our technologies, but I feel like the people of this world are so much farther away from true direction than at any time. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And really, if I were to pull back 50,000 foot view, you know, order, chaos. Chaos is where the devil, is where sin, is where evil reigns, because there is nothing to control it. It can go whatever it wants and do whatever it wants. So when you see people who promote chaos in life, that is not the way. The way is the truth and the life, and that is Jesus Christ. And it's all about order. And so what I wish people take away from this book is you see two types of people: people who are directionless and people who have direction. Look at the contrast and identify how each makes decisions and where they end up in the future state. And we'll be continuing with this story in the coming volumes and the coming books that we would be writing. But I'll leave with this, going back to Cain. God spoke to Cain and said, "If you do well, will you not be accepted?" And he said, "If you don't do well, sin is at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must rule over it." So just know that chaos is at the door. What you want to do is at the door, calling you all the time. And you may look to resist it based on morals, but the only way to truly rule over it, as God mentioned, is Jesus in you, is God in you, is order in your heart. And so in this book and in this trilogy, that's something that we are looking to promote: order. Well, thank you guys, everybody, for watching our interview, and we're super excited to continue this journey. So thank you, everybody.